Everybody, Tabletop Santa here. I've got a great opportunity to talk to Jay from Better Backstories. Jay, thank you so much for taking the time out to come and sit with us here in the chilly Midwest of Decatur, Illinois. Nowhere
Well,
close to where you're from originally, yeah?
yeah, it certainly doesn't beat my hometown of North Pole, Alaska. My mom went out to vote in negative 26 to below zero temperatures.
Oh my
So
God,
that's dedication for me.
that is insane. But that's dedication to the cause right there for sure.
It really is.
Yeah, very cool. Well, welcome. So tell us about Better Backstories. What exactly is it for those that haven't seen either my TikToks or your TikToks or any of the stuff that we've done?
Okay. So Better Backstories is a card-based creation tool for helping people to create better informational stories about RPG characters or creative writing or anything like that. And they work kind of like tarot cards, you know, you shuffle them up really good and you play a few cards and you see that, oh, you were kidnapped as a child. You were hidden away from your parents and you're kind of a sourpuss. And just by playing these cards, they give you suggestions, and some of the cards have charts on them that you can then play another card face down because the back of the cards have numbers. And you can see on the chart, the number 1, you always play devil's advocate. And they're little simple suggestions and ideas that just help jumpstart your imagination and get you thinking in a different direction, because I've noticed in all the hundreds of characters that I've created for D&D, Star Wars, Marvel superheroes, whatever, there are certain tropes that I always kind of lend myself to. There's certain character types that I always ended up making, and it got boring. I wanted things to be more interesting. So I used a lot of backstory book generators, and there are a couple in the D&D books, like I think Xanathar's Guide has kind of a backstory thing in it, which is nice. But rolling on this chart and then going to that page and rolling on that chart and then going back and forth, and it was just so cumbersome. So I had friends who had done tarot cards, and I was like, I could put everything on cards and it would be self-contained, it would be random. And I think I did the math with all the different options here. If you draw 5 cards, that's over 4 million different iterations or 4 million different options that you might come up with for your character.
That's a lot. And one of the things about this that I really like is in the rule booklet that comes in the box, you have where you can do just a casual interaction with an NPC that might just be like, how are they actually just going to interact with you as far as, is it a positive or negative interaction? Then what is it, draw 3 and you get a pretty solid NPC that you could obviously build off of. And then 5 gives you a really good foundation and build for a backstory for a PC, right? Or even a big bad, right?
Right, and you can just keep on adding on. I mean, if you've got like a level 5 character, do 7 cards. If you've got a level 10 big bad, then you can do 8 or 9 cards. And the good thing is that I tried to write them all very generically so that they, you can kind of interweave them together. Some of them do, there's a little bit of overlap. Some of them might contradict each other, but it's just a suggestion. You don't like a card? Flip over another one and start again. It's not a game. There's no rules. There's no points. It's merely just, oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh, I was born during a solar eclipse. Okay, what might that mean, if anything? But
Right.
And if it's not just information for you as the player, but also for your dungeon master, which they might want to try and make something of that. You never know what's going to spark that imagination.
Absolutely. Like saying if a character is born during a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, what does that mean in the world's mythology? And how does that, as a DM, I would be thinking about, all right, well, wasn't thinking about how that would affect my game or my world, but now I'm going to. And I think that's another really good thing about the Better Backstories is it gives you so much creative prompts that you don't necessarily remember every time you're building a world or a campaign or even a one-shot. These things sometimes are forgotten, but this definitely gives you everything. It really does give you everything.
It gives you quite a bit. The basic deck is 60 cards, and it's what I call genre neutral, meaning it can be used in horror, fantasy, sci-fi, modern day, Western, it doesn't matter. But we have plans for expansion packs. And the big bundle box, which you already have, which was our Kickstarter exclusive, already has the first 2 boosters, which is the sci-fi booster known as technical and the fantasy booster known as mystical. And there are 10 extra cards in each of those packs that cater more towards magic and fantasy and stuff, and cater more towards cybernetics and, you know, robotics and stuff. And I have ideas for doing a Western theme, for doing a horror theme, even doing one about traditions and ceremonies, which would just be kind of like you said, it would be more of a world building thing, where it's like, oh, on the full moon, this happens. On the in the harvest season, this special event takes place. Right. And it can just, again, I love how it can help not just the player, but also help the dungeon master, who's always looking for plot ideas.
Always. So that's actually a really good idea. I think Better Backstories could definitely branch out into other product lines, like better worlds, better, anything like that. So that you saying that definitely lets us know that you've got more on the horizon, which is awesome. And I can't think of anybody that I know that did get this either on Kickstarter or through marketing efforts on your part and everything that hasn't been excited and satisfied with it.
I have gotten no negativity as far as the product itself. We had a little bit of a shipping issue going overseas. I accidentally put the price of the item as the price I was selling it for, which was $50. And anything over $20 going to many overseas countries gets caught up in customs. Oh. And these people paid $17 on the Kickstarter. Right. And then when it got there and customs saying, you owe me another $25, they're like, I'm not going to pay again for something that I already paid for when I didn't expect to have to pay this customs. So I've been getting a lot of the bags back in the last couple of days. This one just came back from Norway today. So what I do is I contact the backer. I say, I'm very sorry. I got your deck back today. Do you still want it? And I will ship it again with the proper price so that it'll zip right through customs. And I've already had some that have done this, and they got it in like 3 days. It was like rapid fire. And only one person so far who, in this case, said, you know what, I'm done. I'd rather have a refund. Sure. So as far as that's concerned, that was really the only kind of negativity. When people actually get the cards in hand, they really like the quality. They're designed really well. You know, we've not only got the main cards, but there's also a watermark built in back here. We got all these icons on the back for weather patterns, for land masses, and even a watermark of the category of the card, so that the dungeon master, I always saw this as kind of like a premonitional thing. Is like, oh, I sense trouble in your future. And you flip the card and we see, you know, it's the stolen card or something like that. And I've even had people who've used the cards to run one-shot games. They develop their plot with the cards. That's awesome. Just by trying to tie them together. And the instructions are just the idea that I had for how I play the cards. I encourage people to use them in whatever method they have. Even when I was beta testing, I had people who were like, yeah, I dealt out 3 or 4 cards to each of the people at the table. And I was like, okay, that's not really how they're played. And he said, yeah. And then like when they needed it, they would like evoke backstory and they'd be like, oh, I'm actually kind of unpopular. I want to start a fight. And it was like, wow, they were like literally activating their backstory in the course of the game. And I thought that was a really interesting way of using it.
That's brilliant. That's super cool. So when you were talking about, you had, the one little shipping hiccup from the Kickstarter thing, which is, expected on every new Kickstarter, there's going to be something like that. What was some of the things that you discovered during the process of creating Better Backstories that were like learning curve opportunities, or or things that you were like, oh, I really like this in the beginning, but you had to change it because of maybe packaging or whatever?
So my initial idea, when I first designed the cards, I actually printed them out on regular paper, like 4 cards per page, and then I cut them, and right away I realized I can't cut these things all the same size. It's not going to shuffle properly. So eventually I designed them on perforated business card stock, so that I could even print them double-sided. And then now I had these like perfect little cards. Well, when I scaled them up, and because it was originally based on tarot cards, one of the original titles or names for the product was Character Cards, which didn't stick. My original very first beta deck was tarot sized, which is slightly bigger and wider and longer than a poker deck. Also, the front of the cards, it has the title here at the top with then this other information. Well, this was duplicated on the bottom to be read both ways. but the
Nice.
center information could only be read one direction.
Right.
So a couple of things I quickly realized about the tarot cards is, one, they're very big and hard to shuffle.
Mhm.
I wanted a good,
Yeah.
poker style shuffle. And having those upside down cards, which was originally based on tarot cards, which can be read up and down. There's reasons for placing a tarot card different directions. These were much more straightforward, and you were only going to want to play them one direction. So even if you flipped over a card upside down, you're going to turn it over so you can read it.
Okay.
So I ended up scaling back down to the poker size, taking off that bottom line, which just gave us a little bit more real estate to work with and increase from 8 choices to 10 choices. And then the idea of, oh, what if I didn't have a 10-sided dice on me? That's where we eventually added the numbers on the back and things like that.
All right, because that's what I was going to go to next is like, when you look at any one card, there's enough information on it, more information than you really are expecting. So on the front of the card, or I guess the back of the card, with the imagery here, you've got an equal sign, a snowman, and the number 8 on one side, equal, and what it looks like a village icon, and the number 8 again. So, and each one of those icons are usable on the front of the card in some capacity. Some cards aren't, but the ones that have the lists right. And then in the upper right-hand corner, for those also over here on TikTok Live, this one has an equal and then upward pointing arrow, Deep Snow City. So it kind of talks about what is on the back. So all that iconography that you came up with, what gave you the ideas of adding something besides just the number 8 on the back so that I could use it on the charts?
Well, originally the back was just going to be a number. And then when originally I had like color coding, I had a couple of different ideas for how I was going to separate the cards, because I had originally, even the cards were broken up by kind of like the time in your life. There was birth cards, there were child cards, there were family cards, there were like adult cards. So it was kind of based on, time periods. And I quickly realized that really wasn't going to work, because when the cards get shuffled up, you're going to play them in any order. And yeah, the kidnapping may take place when you were a kid, or it could have taken place while you were in the military in your 20s. So I didn't want to lock too many things down. That's why some of the cards are still like you were born at this time or in this place. So those are still very specific birth cards, but a lot of the other cards lent to other things. So I changed the categories to life, which deals with just like general, things that affect you and what happens. One is trouble, which are kind of like negative things. One is drive. A lot of those cards are focused on personality traits, like what motivates you to be a hero, or why are you a jerk, things like that. And I try to have an equal mix of kind of positives and negatives. Now, some cards with the positive and negative, it realized that some cards automatically lent themselves to being a negative. They affected your life poorly. So that would lend you to being evil or lend you to being chaotic. But other cards had a positive influence on your life. You were raised wealthy. Okay, well, that lends you to being good or lends you to being lawful. And then there's kind of neutral things. And then there's things that could really go both ways. Your parents split up. Well, was that a good thing because your dad was a jerk, or was it a bad thing because your mother was sad all the time and it made you depressed? So those cards would have a question mark on them. So then on the back side, there's no question marks. There's only plus, equal, and negative. So you use that backside icon to determine what's the question mark. And then like you were saying with an NPC, if you just don't know, it's like, oh, there's an old bearded dwarf in the corner. Well, I want to go talk to him. Okay, he's very cheerful and jovial and he wants to talk to you because I played a plus card, or I pulled a plus card. And one thing that some people kind of mixed up is they would see that, oh, the back of the card has a sun on it and it says sun on the front. Well, this text is just to tell you what those two icons mean if you don't happen to have the icon card with you, okay? So it's just kind of a quick reference. Some people were like, oh, I'm thrifty and it was sunny out. I'm like, no. They're not connected like that. It's like you would say thrifty, and then if you needed something to do with weather, you play another card face down and just focus on that. So I made the cards very versatile to be not just for sitting down and making a character, making a backstory, but then something that the dungeon master could keep by their side during the entire game and mix things up. Oh, you guys wake up in the morning and it's snowing. or you guys come you guys go over that distant mountain range that I didn't plan a map for, and we see a lake, and a volcano in the distance, right? So it's just these little kickstarts that kind of help keep you going. And it all just kind of came together. It just made sense to have the numbers on the back, like a regular playing card. And then I had these extra spaces. So I said, okay, I'll put the plus and minuses there. And then there was just kind of a synergy of 3 at the top and 3 at the bottom. I had these 2 extra little bubbles. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this thing with weather and this other thing with land masses. And that took a lot of time to figure out, well, how many times am I going to put lake in the deck? How many times am I going to have a farmland? How many mountains? How many thunderstorms?
Right.
So it was a matter of determining like the really rare, like there's only one tornado, there's only one ruin, but you're going to get grasslands like 3 or 4 times. And I had to mix that up. And even when I was doing the booster packs, I had to make up a few more. Like I think I added a savanna and a peninsula in some of the booster packs.
Nice. So yeah, I like those aspects to the cards because as every Dungeon Master knows, our players are going to do everything that they can to take us off the rails, right? Yeah. Which is part of the fun. But for a Dungeon Master that may not be quite prepared, this definitely helps them be like, you know what? It's snowing. As we cross the top of these mountains, we're heading into, but it looks like there might be a village or a town off in the distance. You see the lights, and then they're like, ooh, and you just mystified your players because you're like,
exactly.
Really
they're stunned that where did you come up with these ideas, like out of the blue, And right. That's what I love. I love the improvisational aspect of the games, of role-playing games, D&D in particular. And I've always been really good at improv, of just like picking out things that I heard at work and turning them into rumors. It says, oh, there's been, somebody just built a new house out on the side of town. But strangely, it just appeared overnight. So, I was always good at kind of coming up with these little rumors and things for the players to suddenly gravitate to, and then I would just make it up as I went along. Yeah. So I look at the deck as basically taking my own creativity and improvisation and giving it to the world to help them with their own scenarios and campaigns.
Perfect. That is awesome. I've always been a fan of you and all the things that you do. And this right here was so much fun to watch it come to fruition. It was
so great to have you. Like every time I came to a convention, you were like, "You got your cards? I got people who want to see them." Yeah. And I was just so happy for that positive motivation. You really pushed me to make the Kickstarter a reality, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I appreciate you saying that. Now, as far as the holiday, because we are prepping for the big cheerful, joyous holiday of Christmas.
Of Thanksgiving. The big cheerful, joyous Thanksgiving holiday. Yes, it's coming up.
That's like a midday snack for me.
I hear you.
So what is something that you at Better Backstories, Jay, are going to be doing possibly for your fans that might be a little holiday themed, if anything?
Well, back in, I want to say it was August or so, I did a little bit of a discount for both the big bundle boxes, which can be purchased exclusively at betterbackstories.com from me. They are printed and ready to ship. So if you order a big bundle box, it's in the mail the next day and it's on its way to you anywhere in the world. Shipping, when you buy it, it might ask you about shipping. Don't worry about it. Shipping is free anywhere in the world. And then if you want just the basic deck, which is just the 60 cards, you have to go through drivethroughcards.com and order the deck. And it'll take about a week, for them to print, and then maybe a couple of days to get to you in the mail with the way the mail system has been these days. Mm-hmm. But a few months ago, I had a marketing thing with another podcaster called The Dungeon Coach, and I reduced the price of everything by about 20% for about 20 days. And I'm thinking maybe for December, all the way through December, I will do that again. I will lower the price of the big bundle box from $50 to $40, and I'll reduce the price of the basic deck from $28 to $20.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yes, they're perfect stocking stuffers for the gamer in your life.
Absolutely. And that means that if you're a dungeon master or a game master out there for any system, and this isn't a part of your toolbox, the opportunity to get it in your toolbox is greatly enhanced by that offer. And also your friends and family that are watching this that are like, I know somebody that needs this. So that's
exactly. And one of the great things is that I've had people say that they could use it for songwriting. I've had teachers want to use it for like improvisational theater, because you can have some of those kids where you say, get up there and pretend to be a character. I don't know what to pretend to be. What am I doing? You're like, you just flip over these cards and just go, okay, you're a fairy character in a fable, go, you know, or you're an infamous gangster, go. And that's just, again, something, because not everybody believes they can be creative, and they just need that little kick in the pants. And that's what Better Backstories is there for. I've had people use them for, I had a guy write an entire short story. He had been writer's blocked for 2 years.
Wow.
And he sat down, flipped over a few cards, came up with a character, and then boom, wrote himself a little 20-page story. And he was so happy to know that he could still write. And I was so happy to be involved.
That is perfect. So now let's take one little side step away from the gaming and the Better Backstories, because I do have 2 more questions for you that are very holiday specific. With you being from the North Pole, Alaska, what are some holiday traditions that you and your family would do during the holiday?
My family, it was funny growing up in North Pole and knowing you lived in North Pole, because I remember believing in Santa Claus until I was at least 10 or 11 years old, even though we would drive by Santa Claus' house in the summertime and we could go visit it. And I went to North Pole High School and North Pole Middle School. But one of our big things was still, my family tried to maintain the mystery of Santa Claus. So they would send me and my sister to bed at my grandmother's house. And I remember we would stay up, you know, awake until like midnight, and we could hear them outside, you know, jingling bells, and they'd, ho, 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 oh, hi, Santa. Yeah, put the presents over here. And I always remember coming out the next day and seeing all these presents, and then like looking at the fireplace, which had a couch in front of it, because they didn't use the fireplace. And I was like, how did that work? So it was a funny little thing. And then my sister got old enough to stay up, and I remember being alone for like 1 or 2 years, and then I was old enough to stay up on my own. So I never had a Santa Claus isn't real moment. You know, I don't have that definitive, I didn't find like a costume in a drawer or anything like that. It just kind of naturally, okay, you're old enough to know, but nobody like sat me down and explained it to me. It just kind of naturally happened. Incidentally. So it was funny, but I did appreciate my family, you know, maintaining that mystery as long as they could.
That's beautiful. Now,
oh, and you got to watch White Christmas every year. It's that is a staple of my entire childhood, and that movie still makes me cry to this day.
Perfect. Now, you mentioned Thanksgiving, and we all know that's a very food themed event for a lot of folks. What are some holiday treats, dishes that you are a fan of? Again, being from North Pole, Alaska, I'm guessing there's got to be something that's a must-have on that table, either as a treat or as a main.
Well, up in Alaska, people do a lot of hunting, so there's always somebody who brings, you know, moose burgers or caribou jerky or something like that. But one of the 2 main things in my family's household were my grandfather's Polish chicken, which were his own creation. They're not actually based, as far as we know, on any traditional Polish thing. But it's like glazed onions, and you chop up the chicken and you fry it really good. Then you glaze the onions separately, and then you put them together, and it just has this really unique taste. And you add some gravy to it, and it's fantastic. The other one, and my mom made both of these for me while she was here taking care of me last week. The other one is called Porcupine Balls. And Mom actually got these off the back of a box of rice-a-roni 30 years ago.
Okay.
So you take dry rice-a-roni and a pound of hamburger. You mix the dry rice-a-roni with the hamburger with a little bit of tomato paste and the flavor packet from the rice-a-roni. And then you pack them into little meatballs. You fry them up in the cooker, and then you add some brown gravy of whatever kind you like, and just let that boil and simmer like that. And then you put the gravy over noodles, and you chop those balls in half, and you cook it just long enough so that the vermicelli and the rice just starts to get cooked. But porcupine balls, because the vermicelli is not completely cooked, so it's still kind of spiky in your mouth.
Oh, wow. That's got to be interesting texture and taste.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Very cool. All right. So where can everybody find Better Backstories or you on social media or wherever? All
right. Better Backstories, the main place is our website, www.betterbackstories.com. And if you can't remember that, there's betterbackstories.net And if you can't remember that, there's better-backstories.com and .net. I bought all 4 of those addresses just to be safe, and they all go to the same place. On that website, you can purchase the big bundle box directly from me. There are links that will take you to Drive-Thru Cards to purchase the basic deck or the 2 expansions, which are sold separately. You can also get PDF versions of all the cards either on the website or at drivethrucards.com. There's also links to Redbubble where you can buy the poster and other little accoutrements like coffee mugs and stickers and things like that.
Nice.
And then there's also a link to armorclass10.com, which has t-shirts for Better Backstories and hoodies, both in male and female of whatever color you decide and whatever size you want, and they'll ship them anywhere in the world. And for any backers out there, you can get a special t-shirt that has a special label on it that says, I backed it. So if you want to share with the world that you backed Better Backstories, go to armorclass10.com for your t-shirts. Besides that, we also have Better Backstories on Facebook, where I'm always posting updates. We have Better Backstories on Instagram, where I'm often posting little fiddly bits. And for me, the best place to find me is just look for JazRae22. That's JazRae22. And that's on TikTok, that's on Instagram, and I just closed my Facebook cosplay page, so it's not there anymore. But that's also, you can also find me on Tumblr there. And if you just look for J.R. Stillipek, I'm the only one in the world on Facebook, so I'm pretty easy to find that way.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your time and talking about Better Backstories and your holiday traditions. It's so good. And we do appreciate you. And we hope that your year ends in the most harmonious way. And that you're able to, at least get in some games too, play some games. Don't just make the games and such.
Got to do it.
Play. And for everybody out there, make sure you go check out all the different social media platforms, the website, and everything. So and become a participant and support Better Backstories through getting it for yourself or a friend that happens to be a fan of games like Dungeons and Dragons or other role-playing games like that. And until next time, I'm Tabletop Santa, and I'll see you this holiday season.